Hello everybody. Right then, I'm continuing now with my Loco which I'm building. It's a beginner's Loco because I'm a beginner at this, and I'm just documenting everything I'm doing just in case it might help people that might be just starting out like me. So I'm not a professional at this, I'm just a beginner like a lot of people. So I've got to a stage now where I've made my stretchers, so you can see all these parts in a separate series which I've done, including my boiler and everything else. I'm doing them in little chunks, little parts if you like, so you can look back at all them and see everything I've done. I digress. Right. My last video I made my stretchers, or my last clip, wherever it'll be, and I was going to fit my stretchers and split my frames, which are now machined. I was going to split them and put my stretchers in, but I've decided to do the horn guides next. So the horn guides are where the axle boxes slide up and down, and it's this part here. And on this beginner's Loco, which I'm calling it, they're pretty straightforward. It's just a T-section with a couple of notches in and a radius to clear frames. And on a lot of Locos I've seen, and I'm not an expert at this by no means, I've seen on where horn guides are, a lot of them have got fancy castings on or fancy fabrications that look quite complicated. But on this one it's quite simple really, it's just a T-section. So I'm doing this on a budget build and I wasn't going to buy any castings. I said that at the very beginning of one of my parts, and I'm not. But when I first started this Loco I was offered a box of bits and pieces, and in that box were castings for horn guides. I've got 4 of these, but I need 6 because I'm doing a 6-wheeler, a Metre maid. But I found this other lump of cast iron in my workshop, and I've found out that I'm just going to be able to get 2 more sets out of this cast iron. So I'm going to continue using this cast. Now this cast, there's no end of material, got to be machined off it. I don't know why they've done them that thick. When you look at the finished sizes, there's quite a lot to come off. And I was going to make them out of steel before I've come across these by chance. I was going to use T-section steel, just like angle section, but T-section. And I was going to cut, this is a practice one I did, and I was going to cut the legs down to the relevant sizes, and then they'll fit. They were going to fit in my slots like that. Bear in mind this is double thickness, this at the moment, so they would fit like that. That's why that radius is on that corner, to fit in your horn slot. So imagine this is a frame, got a chamfer on there, and it just fits on like that. Right, so yeah, that was my plan. The only thing was the thickness of this, the thickness of the face here on this T-section is only 1/8. On the drawing it's 3/16. So I was going to braze or solder, silver solder, a shim on and machine it back to 3/16. That was my initial plan. So that's just an idea for you if you're doing it my method on a budget. So I'm going to be using these castings now, and there's quite a lot to machine off. So I'll take you over to Miller. I've just made a start at these and show you where I'm up to. Okay, I'm on my miller now. I've got my vice on. I've clocked my vice up parallel with spindle. I've put some parallels in my vice to raise the blocks, the horn blocks up to the relevant height. And then I'm machining these faces on both sides here and bringing the webbing here down to thickness like so. There's one already done. So I'm going to do them all like that. There's quite a lot of material to come off these, and on a small milling machine that makes it a bit more difficult. Right, so I think my camera might have moved there. Okay, progress report on my horn blocks. I've now got them all finished on one way, one side. I've got to now turn them over, machine the top to the thickness and machine the sides to the thickness. Now then, just a little tip here which could easily be overlooked especially if you're a beginner. On my frames I'm using black roll steel, which is 5.3mm, which in thousandths is 0.210. The book's telling you to use 3/16 side frames, and all the measurements are made in accordance with that 3/16 thickness of frame. So you've got, if you're using thicker material for your frames, you've got to reduce the size of these legs on the horn guides, on the horns. So if you're using 3/16 plate, the book tells you to make one side 15/64 wide and the other side 21/64 wide, and the middle piece is 3/16. Right, so because my frame material is thicker than 3/16, I've got to now adjust this leg here, this smaller leg, and I've got to increase that dimension from 15/64 up to, I've got it wrote down here, just a minute. I've got to increase that leg up to 0.257, and by increasing that leg 257 to keep my 3/4 width overall, I've got to reduce the other leg from 21/64 to 0.305 thousandths, leaving the middle bit the same, 3/16. So I just thought I'd point that out, because you've got to keep this leg in correct position so that when it's clamped to your frame, the horn block stays relatively in the same position as it would do if you're using 3/16 frames. Just thought I'd point that out. And the other thing is, I notice when my milling machine's running and I replay it back, it looks as though my milling cutter's going the wrong way around and in slow motion. It's just an optical illusion. I'm actually running at 325 RPM. I'd like to go a little bit faster, but my milling machine has got limitations attached to it, and the next speed up is just a bit too fast for the high-speed steel cutter. If it was a tip cutter, it would be okay, but I ain't got a tip cutter, a carbide tip cutter. So yeah, just thought I'd mention that. Right then, so my next plan of action then is to machine the top to get it to the correct thickness, and then the sides, which I've just mentioned. I was gonna sit it on some parallels in my vise and do all the 3 operations in one setting. I've gone off that idea because my milling machine, it's not too bad, don't get me wrong, but it's not a professional machine, it's just an hobby machine. And my vise is an unknown quantity that came with it, and sometimes when I'm on parallels it don't quite give a parallel finish, if you get what I mean, when I've cut it. So I'm going to set it up with dial test indicator on all the sides to make sure everything's perfectly true. Right, just to clarify what I've done then, I'm setting these up individually in my vise now to machine the faces. So I've got one in the vise, and I've got my machine face in the vise up to the fixed jaw, and then because this face has not been machined yet, I've got a piece of bar on my moving jaw, so that when I close my moving jaw it won't want to tend to rock the thing out of squareness at right angles that way. So I've put a piece of bar in my moving jaw, clamped it up, and I've clocked the face up on the central web, this face. I've got that now within a thou. If you can see me clock. Yeah, I've got that clocked up now within, well, probably within half a thou. Across the whole length. So now I'm going to machine this top down to that new size which I mentioned. Instead of 15/64, I'm doing it to 0.257 now, and I'll use my depth gauge to get that, my depth micrometer. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do next then. just another quick tip, when you're cutting cast iron, it can be very messy material to cut, and you're best off putting protection over your screws and your slides. I just use magnets to hold kitchen roll down to catch all the cast iron turnings, filings. So that measures 2.66 thousandths, and I've got to come down to 257. So just another cut to take off of that.